This video is for adults only. Viewer discretion is advised. Everything I'm sharing is my opinion.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot where you're from. So why did David take this trip to in the middle of the night from LA to Santa Barbara County? Well, I have a theory on this and it is very dark. So I am putting a trigger warning on this. So this video is for adults only. I don't think that David was planning to dispose of her in Santa Barbara and backed out, which is kind of what we were originally thinking, right? When we were talking about this the other day, I think he went back to get her. So why would he do this? So you will recall that we heard that David actually used Celeste in these shirts that he had on sale. Now people said, oh no, if he had used it, his Itami red painted, bloody looking shirts that he was selling online to probably mostly kids, right? I don't think an adult would buy this and wear it. Maybe a young adult. But you will recall that he bragged online about being into gore, right? And that he was very specific about it. Let me just show you the receipts on that. There it is, right there. There's David. You can see D4VD, and that's what he wrote. I love gore. Okay. And this is significant. So, and along with some of these other disturbing posts that he made about, chopping meat, and if he sees her while he's talking with other dudes, but it's not what we were originally thinking. Nothing is like what we were originally thinking. So let's talk about what's really going on here. So we know that symbolism is everything for David, right? We know he took this trip. And the LAPD are trying to figure out why he drove 2.5 hours to Santa Barbara County, 2.5 hours or so when he was down there, and another 2.5 hours back. So did he go to Santa Barbara to recover Celeste? And if so, why? And this is why I believe we know that everything for David is about symbolism, right? He was wearing the celestial divine Hello Kitty shirt, which I believe is very symbolic of Celeste. More specifically, about her being divine, celestial, so heavenly, right? Very symbolic. And then he was wearing, his video shows him, dragging this body along the ground and it shows people dragging this body along the ground and putting this body into the back of into a trunk of a car. And then he's running around the country holding mock funerals. So I think we can all agree that everything about David is very, very symbolic. And he even had an unreleased song titled Celeste. Again, very symbolic. And even the crow music that he posted on Celeste's birthday, September 7th of 2025, wearing a Hello Kitty shirt, is very symbolic because crows represent death and rebirth in many cultures. So everything about David was about symbolism. And I think David viewed himself as really artistic. I don't think he is. I think he's just dark and awful, in my opinion. But so having physical possession of Celeste would have also been symbolic for David, in my opinion. Hear me out. And it's not understood for regular people like us. We would not think about it this way, but we're not David. Okay. So we have heard rumors that the LAPD were investigating rumors that David had used Celeste to create these Itami painted shirts. You can see him whenever he has a blindfold on and he's wearing a painted shirt. That's supposed to be him as Itami. And these are the shirts that he was selling for $35 a pop. So we have heard rumors that he was investigating, that LAPD was investigating the claims. Now, I don't know if the claims are true or not, but it was enough that LAPD was reportedly investigating the claims that he was using Celeste, not for all of it, but for parts. And I've already shown you guys in another couple of live streams, screenshots of him making the shirts on black tarps, right? And she was found in black plastic. So why would LAPD waste their time investigating these claims? Is it just trying to rule things that are out, or is there something more nefarious there? We know they're trying to put the pieces together of this Santa Barbara trip. So David did go back and retrieve Celeste, and I believe it so he could uh, literally use her uh, in these shirts. Now, hear me out before you dismiss the theory. People said that that it would turn the shirts brown. Not if you just used a little tiny bit, just enough to create in his mind something that would be symbolic for David, right? And if you haven't subscribed to Reporter Room, please consider subscribing. It's free. It lets the YouTube algorithm know I'm doing a good job. So people said that if he had used a little bit of Celeste's, you know, into the shirts, it would turn them brown, but not if he just mixed in a tiny bit with a lot of red paint, just enough to create in his mind something that would be symbolic for David, in my opinion, allegedly. Now, I think she was his muse, and I think there was some part of him, and it's not something that we can understand, that wanted to possess Celeste. That wanted to possess Celeste. So I think that she was ultimately found in the front trunk of his Tesla. And instead of disappearing into a remote area of Santa Barbara County, and this is why. So I think that this was all about control and domination for David. I think that, and I believe that Celeste loved him. I don't think David felt love for her. I think he liked the idea of her. He also liked gore, right? He said he loved gore. He even bragged about trying to desensitize himself to gore. And if you look up gore and then you look up video with that word, the G word, please don't write it in the chat, and I'll let you look that up. I can't talk about it on YouTube. You will see how dark it is. And so David is not the first person to use someone in this disturbing way, and we're going to talk about that. So put a pin in that in just a second. So please stay with me. But David was dark, and I think he actually wanted to have and maintain control of Celeste. He liked to dominate her, and I do believe that this crime is about domination and possession. I don't think that David loved her, and I've shared with you before, I believe that David hated women, and this is why he was interested in this little girl. And the reason I don't believe that he loved her is that we didn't hear one single word from this man who was traveling around the country with an adolescent-sized casket holding mock funerals. We didn't hear one word of condolences from this man for Celeste, for her family, even after he had heard that a body had been found in the front trunk of his Tesla, and it had a shush tattoo on the finger, which he had a matching tattoo. And I believe this was a pact between David and Celeste. Shush, literally. He knew it was Celeste, but he stayed silent. He just kept touring, not one word. And sometimes what somebody doesn't say is just as interesting as what they do say, right? Sometimes what somebody doesn't say, this is a Tommy right here, is just as interesting as what they do say. So whenever you see him wearing the blindfold, that's a Tommy. So why would somebody try to desensitize themselves to gore? In light of what we know about David now, and I do think it's worth considering that the reason that Celeste was found in the front trunk of his Tesla is because he did have a deep desire to maintain control of her. And I believe that he enticed Celeste away from her family, just to be clear, in my opinion, on multiple occasions with nefarious intentions. And those are felonies that go up to 8 years for each felony. When she was 12, he was 18. 6 years difference. So people have said, oh, they weren't that far apart. They were. If it would be 16 and 18, okay. But 12 and 18, no. 19, she was 13. When he was 20, she was only 14 years old. So there is a 6-year difference between David and Celeste. And so his bizarre obsession with Celeste is evidenced by the lyrics in his song Romantic Homicide, which are frequently cited, but are even more disturbing in light of the recent events of the police trying to figure out why David went to Santa Barbara County. So the lyrics are disturbing. It says, quote, in the back of my mind, I illed you with a K. I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you. I do believe that he was fantasizing about doing this before he did it. I believe David when he says that he hated her. I think the more that Celeste started to look like a young woman and not like a 12-year-old and 13-year-old anymore, she started to mature. I believe that David would have come to despise her. Additionally, in my opinion, allegedly, a separate unreleased leaked song titled Celeste was also highlighted for having creepy lyrics that fans in the media connect to the case. Specific lines on that song include, "Oh, Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest, smell her on my clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed." I believe him when he tells us he was obsessed. So I believe that he was obsessed and that he wanted to control her, and he wanted to dominate her, but it just gets darker and worse. So listen to this. He says, quote, "Run away from home in the name of love, C." So in my opinion, C is Celeste. He's directly speaking to her, "Run into my loving arms." And of course, we know she did run away from home and toward David multiple times. Her family reported her missing multiple times. And instead of condolences, we had this bizarre SWAT call to David's parents' house that, a lot of you guys were suspicious of the SWAT call. A lot of you guys thought it might be David. I don't know if it was or isn't, but I believe it is possible that it could have been him that made this call. And it would have given him an excuse, a legal excuse, to transfer his property into his parents' name in an effort to protect his assets from Celeste's family. And it also would give David an excuse to tell his parents that he needed to transfer the property over to their name because he needed to protect himself. Remember, he has to save face with his parents too, right? He needed to protect himself from the public finding out where he lived. So this would have served two purposes. It would protect his assets from Celeste's family, but it would also allow him to save face with his own family. And that's exactly what he did. Instead of stopping his tour around the country with an adolescent size casket holding mock funerals, he stayed on tour and just continued around the country. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Give this a thumbs up and drop me a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below.